Okay, we'll begin public hearing for Planning Commission meeting on June 26, 2019. We'll begin with a prayer from Commissioner Shannon Ellsworth and then the pledge led by Commissioner Andrew Howard.
Our dear kind Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity to meet together and to serve our community. We're thankful for this beautiful city that we live in. We're thankful for the opportunities that we have in this wonderful nation. We pray that Thou will bless us, that we can make the best decisions possible for our community and our neighbors. Help us to be efficient and effective in creating good opportunities for the development and growth of the areas that we care about. And we say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please arise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
We'll be hearing 4 items this evening in our meeting. I'll ask for a roll call at this time, and if any of the commissioners has conflict of interest, I'll invite them to state that.
Shannon Ellsworth, no conflict.
Andrew Howard, no conflicts.
Jamin Rowan, no conflict.
Robert Knudsen, no conflict.
Great. We'll introduce the first 2 items together, but they will require separate motions. Obviously, the first item, I know we were taught how to pronounce your name last time, but I've already forgotten. Brady Dushare requests a project plan approval for 64 condominium units on approximately 2.15 acres at 1320 South State Street in a proposed pro zone, and is seeking project plan approval tonight on that. Item number 2, Brady Dushare requests an ordinance text amendment to section 14.50 to amend the title and the purpose and objectives to the 50 East Project Redevelopment Option Zone. That item is a legislative item, and we'll just be making a recommendation there. We'll begin. Robert Mills will introduce both of these items to us this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. Just one thing to clarify really quickly is that on item 1, this is no longer a proposed pro zone. At the time of writing, it was last week the City Council approved the pro zone zoning for this project. So zoning has been established on the parcel, and this item tonight is, like Mr. Rowan said, project plan approval and also just an amendment to that particular pro zone. For refresher's sake, the project site is on South State Street at 1320 South. This is a superimposed image of the proposed project and how it will lay out 4 buildings comprising 16 units per building on 4 floors. Buildings are 2-bedroom, 1-bath units. The applicant has gone to great lengths to ensure that these units can qualify for FHA-backed mortgages, which is a desirable amenity from the neighborhood standpoint. There are 130 parking stalls that have been proposed, and the developer has entered into a development agreement. Even though the zoning would allow less, they will be providing that number of stalls in perpetuity. Last time that we met, there was some concern about the project plan regarding elevations, what exactly the units were looking like, and landscaping. These are kind of some schematics of what the elevations of the units will look like. There will be 4 buildings and slight variations in 4 different color schemes, mostly the same colors, just used in different ways on the different buildings. And the applicant has a presentation prepared as well that will go into that a little bit more. But these are the 4 packages of color, stone, the roofing elements, the stone elements. Those will all remain the same. A bit different arrangement of paint color on the different buildings. And then a proposed landscape plan that does meet the landscaping requirements. You can see the variation of larger trees with plantings and shrubbery underneath them, and where the open space for the project is going to be. The second item that you'll be voting on tonight is just an amendment to this particular pro zone, basically amending the title of the zone and also the purpose and objectives of this zone. When this zone was originally enacted, it was in 2010, dealing with a different project that was never constructed, but was adopted as a zoning option. And so the applicant was able to take this same zone because it met the requirements of the project, and now we're just going to amend the title, make sure that the purpose and objective is pertinent to this project, and also it's been made and adjusted so that this could be a development zone option for other developments in future. So that's kind of my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Mills? Okay, we'd invite the applicant to come forward and present, add to what Mr. Mills has already shared with us. Sorry.
Oh, good. Okay, we could go through quickly because Robert did a good job there. Okay. This is for our sales. The only thing I wanted to point out here was that the DRC wanted us to do more variation, like on height. So our landscape plan allows for what we're doing, but then the DRC said, hey, maybe put some taller trees, and then we're also required to do the park strip, which is also going to have trees. So that's not on our landscape plan. So we'll have the park strip there with trees all along around the corner, and then our landscape plan. So this isn't it. This is just a site rendering. That's an actual building. That's what we're going to be building. So the units go through. So the end units have front door, window in the back, windows on the side. So there's one unit that does the whole floor. There's not a unit here and then a unit in the back. Different angle of the same. Other one? Oh, that's blurry blown up. Okay, that's package 1, which is that one. Package 2, so they're just slightly, so the roofs and the stones are the same, but then they're just slight, the board and bat and the grays. Package 3, package 4. Inside is going to be gray walls, nice carpet. The kitchen's pretty nice, solid surface countertops. They have an option of white or dark on that. So here's our landscape plan. This is our guy hand draws this, so down there you've got all the kinds of trees that he's proposed. So it meets Provo, but we're gonna probably do a little bit more high and low stuff right here like the DRC wanted, and then we've got to do the park strip. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Duche? Okay, thank you. I'll open both of these items to public comment. We'll begin by hearing from the neighborhood chair, if she's here. I do see her here. I'm sure it feels that way to her.
The neighborhood has full support of this project. We think it's going to be awesome. Great asset for the community as well. It's wonderful to see it actually in pictures now so that we know exactly what's happening. So we have no objections. This is awesome.
Thank you. All right, any other neighborhood chairs present tonight that want to speak? Okay, we'll open it up to the general public to come forward and speak. Should remind you to state your name.
My name is Tosh Metzger. I'm a resident there in Spring Creek, and I am so excited for these condos. It fits that corridor. It's beautiful colors. It's just a nice quality. Looks really good, so I support it. So,
Great.
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tosh. Unless there's any other public comment, I'll close this part of the hearing to public comment, and we'll look for a motion on both items, unless there's discussion among the commission first. Again, item 1 is an item that we would approve or deny, and then item 2 is one we would recommend approval or denial for.
Mr. Chair, I watched the presentation of last meeting, and I'm familiar with the initial one, and unless the Planning Commission has any concerns pertinent, I'm ready to make a motion to approve the project plan.
Go for it.
All right. I move that we approve a project plan for 64 condominium units on approximately 2.15 acres located at 1320 South State Street in a proposed pro-zone Spring Creek neighborhood.
Is there a second?
Presented.
I'll second.
Okay, Mrs. Elders has seconded. All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. I'll look now for a motion on item number 2.
I think the language was consistent with what was discussed last time, so I'm ready to make a motion that we recommend to the Provo City Council an ordinance text amendment to section 14.50, paren 30, to amend the title of the proposed purpose and objectives to the 50 East Project Redevelopment Option Zone as presented.
Okay, so that's a recommendation for approval to the municipal council. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thanks for coming back.
It's been awesome to work with everybody. Thank you.
Well, thank you for your work. Okay, item number 3, Gordon Livingston requests project plan approval for a 44-unit townhome development located at approximately 1290 South, 1080 East in the low-density residential zone. That's in the Spring Creek neighborhood. Aaron Ardmore will be presenting that item to us tonight.
Thank you. So if you recall, late last year, this came through for the zone change and concept plan. Here's where the property is located, just west of your previous item, which was there. Here's just a site plan in the area to kind of give you what that will look like, but here's a more developed colored area plan. So main thing you want to see here is you've got 2 different types of townhomes that they've developed. You've got some rear-loaded garages with pedestrian front doors on the streets. And then you've got some of these which are pedestrian and driveway on the same side. So here's the kind of the materials and the colors that they would be proposing with this project. Stone on the bottom with cement fiberboard siding, and then tongue and groove. Here are the 2 different types. So you've got your pedestrian access and your garage door adjacent to one another, and then you've got the street facing where the garage is located in the back and access through kind of an alleyway. Floor plans here for the 2 different units. And that's it. So just a little bit more detail on what you saw in the concept plan. Staff is recommending approval as it meets the zone, and it's gone through the CRC process, has met all the requirements there. That's about all for my staff report, if you have any questions.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Ardmore on this item from the commission? Okay, invite Gordon Livingston to come forward and add anything that you feel ought to be added to Mr. Ardmore's presentation.
I don't think there's really anything to add other than I just spoke with Mary. She was a little concerned with the color of the cement board up on top. Our intent was more or less to go with a cafe color. It was more towards beige, but as you can see on that picture, it kind of does look dark. That really wasn't the intent, so that's something that she's concerned with, and would be willing to, have her continue to review that and be part of that. So we have no objections to that. Other than that, there's really nothing else to add, I don't think.
Okay. Any questions for the applicant from the Planning Commission?
Mr. Livingston, are you both the developer and the builder, or is that separate?
Yes, as of right now, we're both the developer and builder. We're firefighters too, so it's kind of a side thing. So,
Okay, so they'll be up to fire code?
yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. How many like surface parking spots are there?
I'm not sure how many on there doesn't say.
Maybe 6?
Yeah, so your visitor spots, you've got 4, 6, 8, 10, it looks like to me. Each of the units has their own private garage, and a lot of them also have a stacking driveway space in front of that garage.
A 2-car garage that stacks so deep?
Yeah, so on these units here, you can see that there's driveway space to park the car behind the garage door.
Oh, a driveway, okay.
Wouldn't be the case on the alley load, but on these ones that are further back, you could do that.
Okay.
You've also got a lot of street frontage, if needs be, but they did meet the parking regulations in Chapter 1437 for this.
Okay. There are some HOAs that have determined that you cannot park in the driveway. Do you anticipate a what do you call the CCNRs that would restrict that?
No.
Okay.
What kind of interest have you had in this development from purchasers?
Quite a bit. There's a lot of interest out there as far as just the type of townhome it is. It's not a multi-story development, so this is where people want to be. So.
And your price range is?
$285 per townhome.
Okay.
Mr. Livingston, anytime you have any type of sports court or ball field, preferably a lacrosse field, it should be oriented north-south.
Oh.
Otherwise, people are looking into the sun.
Oh, that's true.
So it might make more sense to move that there and orient it north-south.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay.
That's a conflict of interest because Gary, Bill plays pickleball.
Hey, I love pickleball. Probably seen the firefighters down at your rec center. Okay. Yes.
Okay, are there any other questions for the applicant? Okay, we'll invite you to sit and invite the neighborhood chair to open public comment.
I noted that the report indicates there's no issues with the neighborhood at the time of this report, and there really aren't. I just wanted to clarify the colors so that it wasn't super dark, Light is always better. We love it. We had this neighborhood meeting way back in January, so it's been a while. It's good to see this happen, see it fleshed out.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the general public of one want to make a comment on this? That's you.
I love our neighborhood. I love Spring Creek. It has a lot of storage units. It's pretty industrial, so I'm happy to see that there's some good housing coming in. It kind of lifts everyone's property values. Once again, this is a good thing, so I'm happy for it. So thank you. Oh, Tosh Metzger is my name. So.
Great. Okay, I don't see any other public that could comment, so I'm going to close public comment and return it to the Planning Commission for any discussion and then a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion unless there's discussion.
And I'll just say, this strikes me as the kind of missing middle that we were talking about in our meeting earlier that I know Ms. Ellsworth is really interested in seeing more of. And I will also say on the right, whatever color you go with is fine. I like dark. Lighter isn't always better.
Has a pocket neighborhood feel to it.
Okay, that's the only discussion I have.
Okay.
Go for it.
All right, well, I move that we recommend to the,
We approve it.
are we approving or recommending?
Yeah, it's just a project plan approval.
Approving,
yeah.
okay. I move that we approve the project plan, for 44-unit townhome development located approximately 1290 South, 1080 East, in the Spring Creek neighborhood.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion for approval and a second. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. And I should chair meetings more often. We are moving right on through. Okay, item number 4, the Provo City Community Development Department requests code amendments to section 14.34.287 regarding the design standards for buildings in the campus mixed-use zone. Mr. Josh Yost will be presenting that item to us this evening.
You ready to put on the brakes?
No.
If you're out of here by 6:30, the department will even buy you dessert.
7 minutes.
Make it quick.
So a couple months ago, you saw just an initial review of this in the form of a memo describing the general class of changes we were looking to make. The scope of that is expanded a little bit because this is the same section that also applies to the LDR, MDR, HDR zones. So there was some additional amendments that are proposed in here that apply more particularly to some of those other zones that are regulated by this section than particularly the campus mixed-use zone. But again, the campus mixed-use zone amendments primarily apply to first floor design and habitable depth requirements, pedestrian building entrances, the location of commercial included in those type of projects, and site design regulations primarily related to location of parking and access to parking. You can, in the actual text of the amendment, you can see that there's a lot of areas that do have changes in them. Some of them are minor, like at the beginning, but some of them are pretty substantive. As a recommendation today, we would like to recommend that you continue this item to facilitate additional discussion with the development community and discussion with the design review committee as well. So if you have any questions at this point, based on your review so far, I'd be happy to answer them. If there's any sections you'd like me to describe in particular, I can do that as well. Otherwise, I'll cede my time back to you.
Any questions or recommendations for Mr. Yost?
I have a question, and it kind of dovetails on a previous meeting where this issue came out. You've got on paragraph 4A23, where it talks about clear glass for wall openings.
What line are you on, Mr. Howard?
Oh, that's a good idea, yeah, 63?
Thank you.
Okay.
And, I understand the need for clear glass, that makes a lot of sense, but someone mentioned in one of the meetings that you don't want tint so people can't see, but there sometimes is some tint for sunlight purposes. Do you need to specify things like that?
Well, technically, we don't count a low E coating as a tint or coloration.
All right.
That can still be a essentially completely clear. If you put a piece of, low E next to a piece of non-treated glass, you can tell a little bit of a difference, but it's not what we generally classify as solar radiation control. Coatings don't count as tint or as being not, clear.
Mm-hmm.
So all, like at the New Skin Pavilion, all of that glass has a deposit, has a treatment inside of the insulated units, but it's very clear.
Okay. I had another question on line number 171 to 174. You talk about articulated. Does that just mean vertical lines and horizontal lines? What do you mean by articulated?
Articulate is intentionally non-specific because that can either mean modulation of the plane, like moving the wall of the building in and out. It can mean changing materials. It can mean creating, lines or details within those materials. Like if you've got a straight brick facade, running a band of header course or soldier course bricks across, that can articulate the facade, essentially adding granularity and detail to a facade. Like this wall is more articulated than it would be if it was 10 sheets of plywood, per se. So it's not necessarily looking for busyness, but looking for
something to break up the monotony.
Treatment, and not necessarily even break up the mass, per se, but to ensure that it is being designed and proportioned in a way that offers interest, and especially interest to the pedestrian realm.
Thank you.
Other questions or suggestions, comments? I'll just say, it seems like the document captures a lot of what we've learned from the neighborhood in terms of what we don't want to see. So I like that this is a document that would correct the mistakes that we've inadvertently allowed developers to make because of the way that the language in this particular zone is phrased. So, and beyond what we've learned from that neighborhood, what we've learned from other areas of the city as well. It seems like you've done a good job of capturing all those things that we've learned. The downtown zone, for example, here as well. Obviously a different zone and type of built environment here, but still, it seemed to me that this captured a lot of those things that we've picked up as a city along the way.
Are there any elements of any of the projects that have come before you recently in these LDR, MDR zones, like the one tonight, or any of the townhome or other projects you've seen recently that this would apply to, that you would like to see the code be altered to address? Is there anything that you would have liked to see different or thought could be improved in those projects that have come to you recently? That could be one way to make sure we're not missing anything.
I can't think of any off the top of my head.
I complained last time that this development looks like a hotel. Is that, would this,
If you can explain what
Right.
parts of it look like a hotel, and I don't know that looking like a hotel is objective enough to really get
Right.
my head around, but.
right. So yeah, to me, the drawings that we had last time, it looked like a hotel motel. I think it's like the orientation of the stairs on the end, which of course is efficient and.
Is it the exterior stairways and
Yeah,
landings
and
and
then like
walkways?
the face of the banisters on each level, you see a lot of student housing like that. So that just, to me, the image that they brought last time had this feel of like hotel motel meets student housing, where it's just kind of a lot of concrete, a lot of cheap railing, a lot of, boxiness. I don't have the words for it that you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I actually did address that because that's something that, for some reason, I feel isn't particularly urban or city-like. It feels rather suburban.
Okay.
Or it seems to be characteristic of more of a commodity type of development, which it could be good or bad, but generally I think planners prefer things that are more derived from their site than something that says, hey, we built this exact same building over in this other place, we'd like to build it
In
here.
the city north of us.
Right.
That we
So-
often use as a bad example.
Yeah, so I did add some stuff in here that in line 192, exterior stairways, corridors, and landings shall not be located on the front or street side elevation of the building.
Okay.
Because we did receive an application for a project in the north end of downtown that does have an exterior stairway, but it's actually loaded from the rear of the project where the parking is. and doesn't read on the front of the project. The building looks like building all the way across, and the ground floor units have entrances to the sidewalks. So I thought, okay, well, it's not necessarily the functional arrangement that's problematic. It's how it is articulated in relation to the street. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I did in response to some of these projects.
I mean, the other project that comes to mind is the one that you were kind of implicitly referencing in terms of the office building downtown that was the PEG development taken, it would seem, from the Lehigh version of the same thing. And I think that we had a good discussion about that. But just in terms of our concerns about freedom, the way that that particular building faced freedom, and I can't remember, they may have technically been in compliance with things, but there was just something that didn't seem right about having kind of that entire side of the parking garage facing freedom. And again, I don't know if that's something you can capture here or if that's just about building orientation more than anything.
I mean, that's in a different zone.
It's in a different zone, of course. Yeah.
I think that, talking about, we did make some, I keep saying we, I made some, I don't want to spread the blame around. I made some alterations to the areas for townhome arrangement. So I think a lot of it has to do with siting. It's not like we have a problem with the parking garage. We have a problem with the location and the articulation of the parking garage relating to the public realm. So like townhomes, I added something that said the townhome in developments of more than 4 townhomes, so not making it problematic for the small infill projects, but need to each face a street so we don't get these long rows of townhomes going perpendicular to the street with parking in between them.
Yeah.
And that their front yards need to face a street, a pedestrian way, or like an open space, so that we won't get any more of the townhomes that face away from the parking, like into the interior property line or a wall.
Yeah.
Those are some of the things that we've seen as a little problematic. So some of those siting issues, and then in the larger zones with the parking, like Pacific Heights or College Place 700, that have been, or I guess on the south side of Joaquin Village or Village at South Campus, the location of those parking garages has kind of reduced the building's relation to the sidewalk and provided, a dead space. So those are some of the other things we've addressed.
Yeah.
So I think that I understand what you're saying, that.
Yeah, and that's great. And I think, it seems to me that the language and, as we continue to revise the language in some of these zones, we're getting more and more of what we want. Even tonight's, the first item is an example of, having that front building right up on the street rather than a parking spots, which is, I imagine, even 5 years, 4 or 5 years ago, we'd have gotten the parking on the State Street and then the housing back off. So it feels to me like the revisions that we're making to our zones are producing more and more of those kind of buildings up against the sidewalk, up against the front, rather than parking stalls, parking spots. Anything else from the Planning Commission? Any questions you have for us, Josh?
No, I think I asked them and you've addressed them. Thank you.
Well, we're 5 minutes later than I wanted to be, but we're gonna go forward anyways. Is there a motion? Again, the recommendation from the staff is to continue this item. Does anyone want to make that or a different motion?
I move that we continue this item until our next meeting, which is July, what?
Is that when you wanted it, Josh, to the next meeting? Or,
That would be fine.
okay,
So it would be, what's the date there?
10th.
July 10th. Okay, yeah, so I move that we continue this item 4 from the Provo City Community Development Department until July 10th.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second to continue this item. All those in favor of the motion to continue? Aye. That's unanimous. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Can I make one comment?
Oh.
Josh, I think you know that new development in Sandy on I-15 where the Hill Center Theater is, and there's like that mega glass building. Sometimes, I don't know if you've experienced this when I drive there and the sun is reflecting on I-15, it's like super
Wicked glare
bright.
later in the day, yeah.
Yeah, so can we write that into our code that we would avoid glare on such structures within proximity to I-15?
We don't have any zones that would permit that kind of structure next to the freeway.
Okay.
But yeah, it's a valid concern and one that usually is not ever analyzed. It's hard to analyze, but that usually isn't. So yeah, we actually experienced that last time. I had to close my eyes, going 85.
As you're
on the freeway.
driving.
Yeah, reflexively had to close my eyes.
4 car seats in the back.
And the Disney concert hall has melted things.
What, really?
Yeah. No, they actually sandblasted some of the skin on it, did some studies and figured out where it was coming from and sandblasted the skin so it wouldn't reflect. It was melting pieces of cars and cone. Yeah.
All right, well, okay, if that's on your radar, that's all I wanted.
So I don't think Frank Gehry is going to design a deconstructivist icon in Provo anytime soon, so we're probably safe, but
Okay.
yeah, I've experienced that.
Okay.
You never know, it might be part of the mature phase.
True.
Going to Intermountain West, mid-sized cities. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I move that we adjourn.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.